I am a little disappointed about no rap for the introduction. I need a walk-up song. Today I'm here to talk to you about the practices that go into working with our some of our most impacted students behaviorally at Dodson. You may or may not know that we house one of the 5 SIP centers in elementary school here in the district, and so I wanted to be able to talk to you a little bit about that. A few years ago, how does this thing work? A few years ago, I was the second-year principal at Dodson, and I guess the staff had gotten comfortable enough with me to start asking some tough questions. And some of the questions that they asked me were these two right here on this slide, which were, haven't we had our turn yet with this program? And what's it going to take to have these kids move to another place? And that was really disheartening for me to hear, because I knew that I had really dedicated teachers and I had to figure out what was going on here. And what I realized was that this was just coming from a place of frustration, because they didn't feel like they were being particularly successful in meeting the needs of these students. And so I knew that we needed to shift the culture. And I had a really simple answer for them, by the way. When they asked these questions, the answer was, it's pretty simple. You're going to need a new principal, because I'm never going to have this program move. And we're going to find a way to meet the needs of all of these kids. And so we started to shift the culture a little bit and started to be more inclusive and started to be accepting of every student at Dodson, but no matter what challenge they were bringing to us. Seriously, there we go. On this slide, I put at the top just some of the key elements that I think all of you probably already built into a lot of your structures and a lot of your school environments. But I've got to point out the one that makes the biggest difference for us at Dodson. And I put it at the very top and center for a reason. The one of all of these, no matter what structures you build in, no matter what expectations you put forth, if you don't build a really strong relationship with kids that are suffering with mental health issues and have gone through traumas and have difficulty managing their emotions, you're not going to be able to go anywhere. And so that's why I put relationships at the very top and center of this list here, is because that's the one you've got to start with. Without that strong relationship with kids, you're not going to make any inroads and help them overcome their challenges. These at the bottom here are some quotes that I got from our staff, because I'm so proud of our staff and the way that they have been able to bring kids into their classrooms. The really tough kids that we have in our program, the goal is always to get them to move up and move out and get into a general education classroom as quickly as we can get them there and be successful. And so a couple of these quotes that I wanted to highlight that are just so key. The middle one is probably the biggest one and maybe one of the hardest ones to do for all of us. And it says, don't take anything personally. It's not about you. And that's one of the quotes that one of my teachers wanted to share in this presentation. And I've been hit and kicked and spit on and called all the names and told all kinds of different things about what they think of Dodson as a school and what they think of me as a principal. But each day I have to remember that when a student is coming to me, they may have suffered some sort of horrific trauma that morning on the way to school. They may have had a conflict, before they left or on the bus, or had a bad interaction with another kid. And that's what this is coming from. And so it's not about me. It's not about taking it personally. It's about now finding where is this coming from and how can I best help this student. And the other quote I wanted to point out is at the very bottom. I love this quote, and I was so proud of this teacher who had the insight to be able to share this, is that each one of these kids has an area of strength and a way to express themselves, and we just have to find what it is. We have to find that one thing that is going to make the difference for this child. So every structure that we have, is going to help that child, but we've got to find the one thing that is going to make the biggest difference for them. Just like Curly told us, there's one thing that is going to make that big difference. There's usually one trigger, there's one motivator that is going to help that child. There's one thing you're going to be able to find. And I'll tell you, I don't have all the answers either, because I wanted to share a story with you about one of our kiddos right now who is just so amazing. He's moved his way up, he's earned his way up the levels. He's a rock star status, level 5+. And so he ought to be going out to his general education environment every day and being successful and all of that. And I've walked with him a few times. Amy's walked with him. Our counselors walked with him. The teachers walked with him. And every time we walk and we get all the way to the door of that classroom, and man, that kid bolts every time. That kid will run. He will just run away from us, and we just can't make him do it. So we haven't found the one thing yet for that student, but we are committed to continue to find the one thing that's going to help him make it in that classroom before he's a 6th grader. So we've got to get it this year, because we want him to be able to go on to middle school and be able to join his middle school peers. The next slide is full of quotes, and it's just about that one thing. And these are examples of times that we have found that one thing. I interviewed kids, and I've interviewed teachers, kids that are being successful, that are out in their general education class, and they're finding success out there, and some teachers who have done a great job of being successful as well. And that one thing was different for every one of these kids, I found. You can see at the very top, what that kid needed was he just needed to have a good day. He just needed to find success the one time, and then he got himself on a roll. He had a green day, which is right, a good day, and he got on that roll, and he's been successful ever since then. One kid just needed to believe in himself. One of the teachers needed to find within himself the insight to say, hey, I'd be mad too. This kid is not able to communicate when he's frustrated, and that would make me really upset too. And so I think having that understanding from a teacher, and a teacher who is still committed to building a relationship with that student, is what's helped the child be successful in that classroom. The next one is a set of quotes, because I want you to understand something, because I know sometimes there's a little bit of frustration around this issue, but I wanted you to understand where some kids are coming from. These are all quotes from kids about what they felt when they had to leave their school and come to Dodson and make that shift. And these are kids who have suffered traumas in most cases, or they have trouble making transitions, they have some mental health issues, or just trouble governing their emotions. And when they come over, they do miss you, and they continue to think about you, and they continue, in most cases, to want to go back. And a lot of times that's a struggle to get them where they can come back in time, but these are all quotes from kids who are still really hoping to come back and join their peers at their schools. They have friends that they left, they have, in some cases, siblings that they left, they have principals that they loved, and counselors and teachers that they loved over there that they're hoping to return to. And so I know sometimes there's frustration about the transition process and about what it takes to get a kid to join our program at the SIP level. And I know that it's a long and involved process, and I want to tell you that it's long and involved because it's supposed to be. You need to test your system, you need to test yourself and make sure that you have done everything that you can to make sure that this child needs to go to a new place in order to be successful. So I wanted to leave you with that message, and the last thing I wanted to leave you with is this quote, which is, I think, something that all of you guys who have ever worked with a student who really struggles with trauma or mental health issues understand, is that as maddening as some of their behaviors can be, and we can get upset in the moment at that time, if you really take the time to get to know that child's story, that misbehavior is not really something that would make you mad. It is something that will break your heart. So that's what I leave you with.